Knowledge is another important part of our lean management system. Most people include this as a subset of people, but when we do it right, knowledge is not just part of people, but has its own unique flow. There's a phrase that knowledge is power, and that's often used, unfortunately, to unproductive ends. It means that people store their knowledge only in their heads. They meter it out at their will and often for their own interests. And they share it through a process of tribal knowledge, going from person to person, often just based on proximity and not purpose. So when we start to say knowledge is a management system, it's more than just what people carry around in their heads. It begins with how we purposely create knowledge for the organization's need. How do we store it and manage it? And how do we share and utilize that knowledge? And while that certainly relies on people, it is its own flow as part of our management system. How is knowledge created in your organization? Often, knowledge is created all the time. People are learning things. But is it random, or is it a deliberate effort to build knowledge? From a lean perspective, I believe the two most effective methods for creating knowledge are reflection and experimentation. Reflection means looking back on experiences that we just had and extracting the lessons as why we got the result that we did. Experimentation means deliberately testing what works and what doesn't. So we might use those practices, but do we design them into our system? Do we do reflection at regular cadence? Is it tied or triggered by activities that go on in our organization? Are experiments designed into our work? Are they expected as part of improvement? And are they even tolerated, or do we simply expect people to have the right answer? Knowledge can be created, but should be done deliberately if it's going to be part of our management system and not simply happenstance from people's activities. Once we start creating knowledge deliberately, it truly becomes part of its own value stream through our organization. We also have to understand, how do we manage and store our knowledge? It's not just in our heads. Now, this isn't about a computer system, although that might be a tool that you deploy. There are no right answers, but we have to ask ourselves, how are we going to capture it? Are we going to decentralize the knowledge and connect it to people that need it? Or are we going to centralize it so it's all in one place for everybody to use? What's the right answer? Very much depends on the rest of your management system. But a couple things to consider from format to location. And that is that we do not want the management and storage of our knowledge to be a separate task. It has to be integrated into our flow. So if we're going to have a standard template to capture knowledge, then that standard template should be used as part of knowledge creation, as opposed to finishing our knowledge creation and then asking people to do an extra step, a waste step, just to be able to put it into a system. So design your need to manage and store knowledge into your knowledge creation process, and you're much more likely to do so effectively and without waste. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, is creating a knowledge economy. What makes up an economy? Supply, demand, and a mechanism by which they meet. That's what we need for our knowledge economy. Supply, demand, and a mechanism by which they meet. I believe it's a little easier to drive through the supply side of the economy, but that means that we have to go as far as saying, who else would benefit from the knowledge I just created? Not just as an exercise, but actually going to knock on the door and put it in front of people. We also need to manage the demand side. Are people expected to go looking for the information before they create it for themselves? Is that part of our process and part of our system? Overall, if we start managing the supply, the demand, and the connecting mechanism of our knowledge economy, we end up with a knowledge management system.